Again, in Atlanta, we talk about wealth inequality a lot. And this is always, every single year we do this State of Atlanta Black Tech Ecosystem Summit, this is the hot button topic. So we're going to try to keep it somewhat short, but this is going to get probably controversial. I don't know. I got to see Barry up there. Ryan, I already see the wheels turning. So let's just do some quick intros. Again, name, organization, role, 1-2 sentence description. Barry, going to start with you, and then we're going to work our way down to Grant.
What's up, everybody? Barry Givens. I'm going to talk through 2 roles today. I feel like I got like 12 jobs, but I'm one of the managing partners at Collab Capital, where we have $50 million. Actually, we're up to $80 million assets under management, 100% for Black founders. And I also lead the Black VC chapter here in Atlanta. I believe we're in 6, maybe 7 cities throughout the U.S. now, and the focus is to bring together fund managers, people in venture capital, investors, but also help create the next generation of Black investors.
Nice.
All right. My name is Anastasia Simon. I am the investment principal at Techstars Atlanta and Techstars Impact, both powered by Cox Enterprises. If you are not familiar, Techstars is one of the largest accelerator platforms, and we are the most active pre-seed investor in the world.
There it is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jaisa Gooden. I'm Vice President of Startup Banking at Silicon Valley Bank. Yes, that's Silicon Valley Bank. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. I'm also a venture partner at Nomis Ventures, so I'll be speaking from both hats, and that's a fintech fund that's based in New York.
There it is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Wilson. I work here. CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot. We're in the community business and bringing people together.
There it is. Grant.
I'm Grant Warner. I'm the executive director for the Center for Black Entrepreneurship, which is a partnership between Spelman College, Morehouse College, and the Black Economic Alliance. Now, every other time Spelman College was said, there was big cheers. I got nothing. All right. So the mission of the center is to unlock Black entrepreneurial talent and connect it to capital and commercial markets with the aspiration of really showing how an HBCU can be an economic development agent and really transform the community around it without gentrification.
There it is. Grant, so let's talk about quickly the things you're working on this year. So everybody here got a lot of stuff as it relates to their roles. We're going to try to keep it somewhat concise. But what are you excited about for this year, Grant? What are you working on?
All right, so I just got here. So I'm the inaugural director for the center. So there are kind of 3 things that I'm going to be working on for the next few years. So one is creating deep and meaningful relationships between CBE stakeholders and the broader community. Expanding our signature entrepreneurial programs, particularly those that demonstrate the intersection of race and entrepreneurship. And the third part is creating pathways for our stakeholders, again, to have meaningful relationships in the ecosystem. So whether that be a founder, a funder, ecosystem builder, et cetera. For this particular year, it manifests itself in a couple ways. One is the LIFT program. So that's something that we're doing in partnership with the mayor's office through Invest Atlanta, also with TIE Atlanta, and it's an incubator for tech startups with the goal of providing capacity building, network development, and access to funding, particularly SBIR funding, which I'll probably talk about a little bit later. Again, expanding our education programs, particularly looking at building case studies around signature entrepreneurs, funders, et cetera, like we have in the Atlanta ecosystem. So I know Harvard is known for case studies, but to Joey's point, we need to tell our own stories. So we would love to develop those things around, kind of key Atlanta organizations and beyond. And the third thing is building out our research capacity. So we got some funding for Bloomberg to launch a research initiative looking at Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship, part of which I think will feed into the data collection and the other work that Donnie was talking about as we look to make it a top 5 ecosystem. So that's some top of mind things.
There it is. Ryan, you work around founders and stuff. Or nieces.
Yeah, this is a new season for us at TGS, and there's really three things that we're focused on. One is everything connected to the member experience. What programs, what hospitality features do we have? We're going to introduce our next club in March in a couple weeks. Second thing is all things about technology. So how do we leverage all of the things we've been discussing actually earlier in this conversation to better connect people? And then the third thing is all about inclusivity, right? We never built this table to make sure that there were seats unavailable for anyone, right? I want TGS to become the most inclusive private membership community in the country. And so we're working on some really unique tools that are going to make sure everyone has a seat at the table.
There it is. There it is, Jaisa.
Yeah, I share the spirit of Ryan that, last year was a long year, and this year I'm really excited about clapping back. That's what this year is about for me, to be honest. And clapping back in the spirit of self-resiliency, because there's a lot of noise. There are a lot of people that think they can say, all right, that stuff we were doing, that was great back then, but now we're ready to move on. But they don't have that power. And so this year I'm about showing that. And that comes from being in places like this. It comes from being able to instill the opportunity in the people who are in this room and being able to be a voice, because I touched down at Art Basel, I touched down at CBC, ALC, I touched down at Afrotech. So for me to have been in those rooms, it's not just about, oh, I have access to this, I'm that girl. It's about being able to come back to spaces like this and say, hey, I've been here, I've been there, and this is what it's time to do. This is what I'm seeing in consistent environments and what the challenges are and what people are frustrated about. So that's what this year is about, being a messenger, being a catalyst, and being the person who's ready to be the one who can lift other people up to take ownership of the role that they play in doing this work.
There it is.
Ooh, I love that. So I am going to affirm that for you, Jaisa, that you are bringing resilience, you are bringing your voice. I'm going to also challenge myself to step into that same space for this year. Right now, the thing that I have top of mind that I'm really focused on is we have a new class of Impact founders that we will be welcoming into Techstars Impact in the next few weeks. So I am getting ready for a retreat. I'm getting ready for all the things that come with a new class. We also will be kicking off at the same time applications for our Techstars Atlanta class. So I will be doing all of those things in the next few weeks. And when it comes to that, that's why I'm gonna need some of that resilience. So for us, it's the same kind of focus that we have year over year. How do we create these on-ramps and off-ramps for founders within the ecosystem? How do we take you from idea, bring you into a program like Techstars, and then hand you off to someone like Barry for funding? So that's really my focus, my goal. How can I be a force multiplier for the founders that are in the room?
Barry?
So with my collab hat, we're in the process of raising $100 million in one of the toughest fundraising environments that has ever existed. We are 30 million there in our second fund. That's how we got to the 80. First fund was 50. We've raised another 30 and got a long way to go to get the other 70 by the end of this year, really by August. And so we are keenly focused on presenting ourselves as the top tier investment firm in the country, no matter who you invest in. And we get the privilege of doing that by investing in Black folks. And so it's funny, when we did this several years ago, this was kind of an idea. And I've been looking at the room and counting, and we got $6-7 million running around this room right now, founders that we've invested in. And so really cool to see that in practice, to see folks walking around doing the work. I may have missed a couple, it might be 8, I don't know, probably missed a couple in here. And then also with Collab, as I mentioned, our goal is to literally start to become a top tier investment firm. And so what that means is also making sure our portfolio is providing outsized returns. And so really digging in, finding resources for them, supporting them, doing whatever it is that they need, and finding those resources through my work I do with the city of Atlanta and other cities, as you mentioned, Jason, being out and about, building relationships with other investors, making sure that our founders have access to everything they need access to. And then that's wonderful because then when they walk into rooms like this and they meet founders that we haven't invested in, then they're able to start to spread that wealth to other people that we might not have gotten to. And so for Black VC, The goal, particularly here in Atlanta for our Atlanta chapter, is we have to beef up our angel network in Atlanta. Just to be like frank, this room isn't going to bring another $500 million worth of venture capital to Atlanta. That shit's hard. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of relationships, it takes a lot of time, and the right people are working on that problem. But what we can do, as was mentioned on the panel earlier, is a lot of y'all motherfuckers making a lot of money. And y'all can start investing that money in some of the founders that are walking around the room. And so when we get into rooms like this, it's up to companies like, or organizations like Black VC to teach you all how to invest. How do you look at a deal? How much capital do you set aside? What types of deals should you be writing checks into? How rich do you really need to be in order to be an angel investor? And so those are some of the things that we do at Black VC through our Black Venture Institute, which helps people that are later in their career learn how to be angel investors, and then breaking into venture, which helps people earlier in their career that want to make shifts into venture. Maybe they're not at a point where they've made enough money to be angels, but they want to join the venture capital space. And so we have both of those training programs, and I would love to get more people from Atlanta into those programs. And then, like I said, get some more of you all writing some angels checks into these awesome founders walking around.
Nice. So let's talk about strengths, right? Let's talk about, Ryan, I'd love to come to you first, and then Anastasia. Let's talk about Black founders in Atlanta, right? Black founders in Atlanta. When it comes to strengths, I mean, Ryan, you see these folks walking around every single day for the last, 6-7 years here at the Gathering Spot. What do you think are when it comes to Black tech startup founders in Atlanta, what do you think our strengths are?
I mean, look at this room, right? You like legitimately can't do this in many cities throughout the country. And there are a lot of amazing founders in this room. Like, if you have a company, raise your hand. Yeah, come on. Like, come on. The strengths is that, like, if you look at our history, the things that we have created out of this city, especially over the last several decades, have gone all over the world. It's in this room. I'm not the person that can do the sad talk about what we don't have, right? Like, look, there are challenges, but then I walk into rooms like this, and I'm like, there's a lot of us doing a lot of amazing things. And like, yes, let's solve that problem over there. But like, just here, I'm not talking about anybody else, right? Just with us, there is a lot of really powerful movement that I've seen. This business, we're 8 years in now. Come on. So like, this is the only city in the country where someone can move here at 24 years old. I raised $20 million in the first iteration of TGS. Mostly from Black folks, had a business mostly supported by Black folks, and have been able to survive now almost a decade. Come on. Yeah. Come on. So, I don't know, I hope I answered your question, you did. There's a real power in what we have going on down here, and like, again, I'm not mad at discussing the challenges, but when we leave here, we hopefully should feel encouraged that there are many other ecosystems that are going to see pictures and videos of this room and be like, if there's a day that it will look like this. Right. I mean, some of these cities, this is the whole city. It's the whole town. Right. So we've got a powerful thing because we know each other, we build the energy, the way that we connect with each other is powerful.
Yeah. I mean, Anastasia, you've seen hundreds, thousands, whatever. What's your take on Black founders in Atlanta?
So I think it's the yes and to everything that Ryan just said. It's what you see in the room, but it's also the tenacity. Like, there is a certain level of tenacity and grit and just hustle that you see from the founders in Atlanta that I don't see when I'm looking at some of the other founders that we see that come through the pipeline for me. It's when you look around this room, these are people who have overcome and who have built things and have built things against the odds, you know? And I think that's the thing that I really am so excited about when I look at the room and when I look at the people here, that it's everything that he said, and y'all got the hustle culture. Like, it's that hustle that we all, when we talk about like hip hop, that's us, that's unique to us, the way that we hustle, the way that we grind, the way that we don't quit, the way that we keep working. You know? And so that's the thing that really excites me when I talk to our founders.
Nice. Grant, I want to go to you. I know you're new, right? But what's your observations on the black founders that you see, and/or the young people that are interested in being a founder?
Sure. So I'm new here. I think, certainly the young founders here are really ambitious, and to the points that have been made, there's a lot of them, in terms of the black founders. So if you look at the ecosystem, I think one of the strengths that we have is you have obviously the AUC premier HBCU network in the country. Number one HBCU is Spelman. You have Georgia State graduates the most the most black undergraduates of any institution, and Georgia Tech graduates the most black tech graduates of any institution. So if you look at the ecosystem that's available here, like it's unparalleled, right, for young black talent. So the stats will tell you the average successful founder is in their 40s. So that's not kind of popular knowledge, right? That's not the way people view entrepreneurship. But what enables that are the people who are at 45 have taken a bite of the apple before, right? So they've had an opportunity to kind of launch a startup, maybe fail and do something else before they become successful. Two, they have a network that helps them understand the ecosystems they're trying to enter. So in many ways, like the Atlanta ecosystem, having so many young black people, having all these black professionals is the perfect accelerant for someone looking to launch a startup, right? How you might reduce that average age from 40 to something else. So I think that there's kind of a lot of assets in the ecosystem.
I love it. Jason, I want to come to you. You see multiple sides of the fence. You see founders, you see investors and the like. So you can answer however you want, or both, right? What do you see the strengths, either black founders, black investors, or both?
Yeah. Talk to me. Okay, There we go. The strengths that I see right now are that people are willing to do it together. And I think that is the most powerful wave that we can have for one another in what we're dealing with, both from a macroeconomic standpoint, but also from a internal, institutional, day-to-day experience. And I see that the most in places like Afrotech, where it is just like somewhere we can just put the weight down for a few days and talk to each other. And from the outside looking in, there are stakeholders who may see what's the value in this? And they want to quantify and KPI it. But that type of restorative, collaborative environment amplifies the work that needs to be done. Like when we're there, we might, do a little networking, but a lot of the time it's just knowing who one another are when we're in the room together. And then from there, you can't quantify how many of those conversations lead to sponsorships for conferences in other cities, or a founder that meets an investor through someone who they met at one of the after parties. So that level of connection, I think, is one of the biggest strengths that I specifically see in this community. I also love, in particular, I have to say this, the way that the Atlanta tech scene in particular overlaps with Atlanta nightlife, and the way that we just so seamlessly and fluidly be in all these spaces together at the same time. I think that is a flawless strength, because it allows us to take the idea of what tech is supposed to be and wholly make it our own. And it's something that is done in other spaces and in other ways. They have their, whatever I'm gonna call Kentucky Derby, where they do their own version of that in mainstream corporate America. But I think Atlanta has uniquely been able to shape that for what it needs to be for the black tech community. And it's something that has amplified business in a way that we're not really seeing in other markets. Right now, I'm leading both the greater Atlanta area as well as the Mid-Atlantic, which includes DC and Philly, focused on early stage companies, pre-Series A, that are raising. So this is what I would like to see replicated in other cities and collaboratively, where, for example, I'm going to DC next week working with Black VC, doing an MLK Day event up there with the investors in that city. And it's in collaboration with Sands Capital, which is also one of the biggest VC firms in DC. So it's not just about how do we work together, but it's how do we get in the room with other people who want to support the work that we're doing and make sure that there's access and communication so that we know what's happening and we're not just isolating ourselves at the same time. Like the way forward is being able to do the work for one another, but then also being able to amplify that work from wherever the help is coming from, as long as the intentions are good.
Nice. Now, Barry, on the VC front, right, the Black VC front, what are the strengths of Black investors in Atlanta?
Ooh, man, one, that they exist.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to overlook the realization that this shit isn't normal. Like, having 4, 5, 6 Black-run VC firms with 50 million, 60 million, 100, like, this is not normal. Like, it's maybe 3, maybe 4 other cities, but it's still not a lot, right? But to your point about that tenacity, about how we operate, one of the things when you build in Atlanta is you learn how to build with no money, right? And so we can translate that into how we coach our founders. Like right now, we have, out of the 36 companies in our portfolio, we have, I believe, 13 that are around 110% operating margin, which means they're either profitable or right damn near, about to be there in a quarter or so, right? Like that's how you build and that's now the word in venture capital. It's not growth at all costs anymore. It's now sustainable growth. And so because we're in Atlanta, because we're building the Atlanta way, my hope is that the companies that are coming out of Atlanta are going to be the shiny objects on the hill in this next year or two, right? Because now the desire for what VCs are looking for, it's not what's being built in New York. It's not what's being built in Silicon Valley, where founders are getting hundreds of millions of dollars and hiring hundreds of people to show absolutely nothing. It's going to be to the founders that have raised 2, 3 million and have done absolutely everything. And so it harkens me back to Tope was speaking at Donnie's event a couple days ago, and he got $350 from one investor and said, I bet.
Right.
$3 billion later?
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that he said when he mentioned it, the question was about how much money he needed. He didn't even mention the hundreds of millions he raised. He said, we only needed $350 to do what we needed to do. The other money he raised, it was because he could at the valuation he wanted to. Same thing with George from Lease Query. He didn't raise any money. He sold Goldman Sachs some stock just because it was Tuesday, right? Like they built their companies from the ground up with almost nothing. And that's what excites me about the city of Atlanta, is that we are resilient groups of people, and we do it, to piggyback on the collaboration, we do it together. And I'm not getting into, I know we're not in the struggle parts yet, but I don't see that enough in this next generation of founders. When you go back to our generation in the early, I'm saying this shit like it's a long time ago. This shit about 11 years ago, 10 years ago. But when DC, the gathering spot DC opened, me and TK sat in the room talking, and we held a room an event in this very room with Absolute Lime, and we launched that. And that was our first big activation with a liquor brand. Like that means a lot when you have a liquor machine company. But I was talking to TK, and TK was like, man, that event made payroll, bro. Like, that's the type of collaboration that all these people that raised their hand, you can't leave this room without meeting 4, 5, 6 other founders. All of you are going to run to the stage and run to Donnie and run to the people that you think have the answers for you, when really you need to turn left and turn right and talk to the people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, building in the same time that you're building, because that is the strength of Atlanta's collaboration. We didn't name this collab capital for no reason. It came from the experiences that got us to where we are. And lastly, not so much about VC, but, and I do know this guy, I don't like him this much, but I'll mention him again. But Donnie and what him and the mayor are doing from a city perspective, I did say his name anyway. What they're doing from a city perspective, they just put, 17, 20, how many people on the screen at the airport? typically you go to the airport and you see Jermaine Dupri, you see Ryan Cameron, you see Luda, you see all these people that made money in music, and people right now are walking through the airport not realizing that one person on that photo has more money than all of them probably, right? And the fact that we have a city behind us now and a leadership within the city that is shining a light on this community is going to make venture capitalists want to come here more. It's going to shine a light as we change the perception. 100 million people come through the Atlanta airport, right? And so that's going to shine a light to what we have going on here, and hopefully that will help bring more VCs to add on to the great work that we're already doing in the city.
Can I add one quick, can y'all hear me? Check, there we go. I want to add one quick thing to that off of what you just said. How many people in here came to Atlanta from somewhere else? Like you moved to Atlanta from somewhere else? I'm pretty sure that's the majority, right? So each of you came from somewhere else. So wherever you came from, there's somebody there who can do something for Atlanta's tech scene that you probably know. So I want to, like I said, I'm here to tell y'all what I would like to empower you to do. Like wherever you're from, wherever you have roots in other places, if you love Atlanta, tell them about what is happening here and what type of support we need. And if there's someone from Atlanta who can benefit from the resources in another place, like be that bridge for Atlanta. That's my little 2 cents, but I want us to move on.
Yeah, that's all good. Now we're gonna shift into the threats. Let's not talk as much about the weaknesses. Let's talk about the threats. Ryan, I'd love to start with you, even though perhaps you don't want to get into that. But it's a tough time for startups, right? It's a tough time for startups. So what are your thoughts on the biggest threats to Atlanta Black startup founders really this year?
I think this season is about scale and not start. I've had a lot of start conversations for a long time, and you get stuck there, right? And what I mean by start, it's so you need to know what a business plan is and all of the iterations of the ABCs of entrepreneurship. We should teach that stuff, right? Don't get me wrong. But we've got to stay laser focused on scaling our stuff. 96%, I mean, it's just, stay laser focused on scaling our stuff though, knowing that we can get to the highest heights of this game. Like, it doesn't mean that we have to sit here and just be happy with being happy that we are here. The biggest threat is us not realizing that our companies absolutely need to be the ones that when folks think about what's happening in Atlanta, they think about companies that Black folks have started that have really scaled and made an impact. That sounds simple, right? But again, there's a lot of people, frankly, making a lot of money convincing people that like just starting or that's the issue. That is not our problem, right? Like we start things actually like at a disproportional rate, more than any other community. The barriers, this is where the challenges really do come into to play. The barriers in the game are preventing us from getting to real scale. We've got to continue though to like stay laser focused on knocking those doors down so that we can get there. I think that the next decade in Atlanta is going to produce several mega companies that Black folks have started and own. And the world will know, right, that it was events like this and the collaboration that we're talking about that helped to make that so. But we've got to manufacture the win in that way. We've got to look at these companies that are in our town and like everybody go over there, sign up, do it, right? So that we can get these companies to the heights that they deserve. Can't live with 96% of our companies not employing anybody.
That's real. That's real. Anastasia, I'd love to come to you because again, you see a lot of, you talked about the stuff that we're strong in, but what are the implications of the areas that we're weak?
So someone said this earlier and in one of the earlier panels about the vibe. Do not get dissuaded by the vibiness of all of this, by the I need to be on every stage doing every pitch competition, by I need to go to everything. I got to go to Afrotech. I got to go to Art Basel. I have to go to this. I got to go. The people that you need to be talking to are your customers. You generate revenue. You don't generate revenue all the time by being at every single event in every single room running your mouth. Leave the vibes alone. Don't do it for the gram. There are so many people who are focused on looking busy and seeming busy and not building the sustainable business. You know? So just like what Ryan said, like be laser focused on building a business. Barry just told y'all, investors are looking for sustainable growth. You don't build sustainable growth running your mouth. That's it. That's it.
There it is. Grant, I want to kick it to you.
Yeah, so I think, the biggest threat is money. That's the biggest threat. If you look at Atlanta, not enough investment happens in Atlanta. That's just true. And the environment for investing is getting worse, not only because of the economy and the risk, but because of the DEI attacks. I was on the phone last night with an agency that had given money to an organization with Negro in its name. I'm not going to say the organization. Organization had Negro in its name. And there was pushback against them funding black entrepreneurs. So they had to change the program so it doesn't say black entrepreneurs. So again, you look at racism spreads faster than COVID, and melanin doesn't inoculate you from it. The person who was bringing the issue about this program was black. So, again, I think that there's a really big risk around funding. And I would say the second part to it is really making sure that we leverage and we advocate to get our fair share of all dollars. So I think we over-index thinking about VC dollars, and it's become sexy, but there are other ways to get money. So the largest seed investor in the country is who? Who do you think that is? U.S. government. U.S. government through the SBIR STTR program. Who in here has applied to SBIR STTR? So just so we had a handful, the room full of hands went up for who's an entrepreneur. 3 hands went up for SBIR STTR. So again, you look at California, then California gets 14 billion. It has 14 billion, billion with a B, SBIR funds. Massachusetts, I think, is 8 billion. Virginia, 4 billion. Atlanta, 800 million, right? So again, I think there's just a dearth of capital kind of in the ecosystem, and we all have to actively work to change that, right? So some of it is on the people with dollars. Some of it is on those of us who are at the front line pushing it back against this anti-DEI. But part of it is thinking about the language that we use. So, white people, no offense, don't say nigger, right? They say inner city. And that was an intentional change. So we don't have to say DEI. We could say pro-growth. We could say whatever, right? We have ample evidence that diversity wins, right? Diversity helps business. We don't have to do diversity for diversity's sake, but it's up for us, again, to tell the actual story around it. So again, I think it's on us, right, to really do that.
So let's talk about. Actually, Barry, I want to go over to you, right? So let's talk about the implications of founders not getting capital. One of them could be founders move away, right? So we lose some of our base. Any other thoughts in terms of the threat of funding? And then maybe there's some other thoughts in terms of threats as it relates to the VCs and the black VC community.
The number one threat to black venture capitalists is growth stage investing. 3 years ago, all these things happened and all this money went into black people, and it was cool to support black. A large patch of that money went to black investors. Shit, I got a lot of it, right? When you think about timeline, it takes a year to raise that money, takes another year to deploy that money, and then it takes another year for your founders to be ready to go out and get the next stage of growth capital. And when you start putting that and mapping that out on a chart, it put most black venture capitalists in a point where their decisions that they made 2 years ago can be phenomenal, but they are now out fundraising in the worst market since 2008. And the majority of my peers raised money during that time. And our KPIs are based, particularly with early stage, is based on how much money can our portfolio raise in the next rounds. We are now in a time where there aren't any more big rounds. There aren't any 20, 30X. They're not happening for anybody. But now we're being measured on that same scale. And, luckily we have some awesome founders and we're doing okay. But in a great market, we will be killing it right now. And so that's one of the biggest threats, because every person that said don't give money to black people is watching these stats like a hawk, and they can't wait for 2 or 3 more years and for our vintage to get about 7, 8 years old, and for them to look back at that data and say, see, niggas can't invest. That is the existential threat to black venture capital right now, because many of us, the future of venture capital is struggling right now.
Can we stick here for a second? Because I think this is like a very critical point, and we just need to make it very plain. As Barry just said, a bunch of funds got a bunch of money all at the same time. They invested that money in founders that are in this room. If those founders don't raise more capital later, the funds that originally invested in them are in trouble. If those funds are in trouble, there is not going to be another group of founders that get access to that capital. It's just like, it's a very, very critical time, and we have to just did I get that wrong?
Absolutely correct.
So what does this mean for all of us? Going back to manufacturing wins, those companies, we have to get, we have to make sure that they're successful, because it makes it possible for that wheel to continue to spin around. If we just do the I hope it works out for you thing, we will be back in this room and we will be sad. Very sad.
Very, very sad.
Very sad. So I don't believe that it has to be our future, but we cannot take a casual approach to what's going on right now. The companies that just raised have to be successful by hook or crook.
Yeah, I want to add to that. For anyone who doesn't know what SVB does, we are the bank of the innovation economy. We are the bank of the founders, and we are the bank of the investors as well. So we see all the money that goes back and forth for the most part. And what I'm seeing right now, particularly for black founders who raised during the time where it was easier to raise, the goalpost has moved. So what it used to take to raise from a seed to a Series A 3-4 years ago, that goalpost is now taken, double. Let's just call it that. It's now double. So when you raise money, you're planning for runway for a certain amount of time period that this money will last you. So founders have planned for 12 months, 18 months of runway with this money that's being raised, but now they need it to stretch 24 or beyond that. And it's putting them in this crunch. And everything that Barry, Ryan, Anastasia said is so spot on, because we don't have the capital ecosystem to sustain in the way that other founder communities do, because they can hit up their alumni angel group that is 100 years old in funding in a way that we don't have that set up yet. The gap is so large. So that is a big part of the problem, but the problem is also too much of a dependency on institutions. We're too dependent on these large tech companies, these large funds, because they have the capital, because they have the 6-7-figure career opportunities for us. But what can truly move the needle for us is what you said around focusing on customer, focus on building the company. Because for a founder who's able to build customer traction and fund the company through revenue, what you talking to a VC for? You're a profitable company. And so the same way we put in the work to make intros to investors, we need to shift that energy to customer relationships. If you're a software engineer at Google and your team is looking for a software solution, find that founder who's adjacent to that space. This is the opportunity to start doing that. If you're a founder, don't just rely on traditional channels of cold emailing to try and get a customer relationship. We got to get more creative, because the traditional pathways that we followed, those wells are drying. And so it's going to be on us, because being loud to these institutions is not going to do it.
Joey, I had a second point. I know that one was hot, but got the people going. But I can't let the founders off the hook. We have to breed excellence. That's not what's coming into my office regularly. We have to Ryan's point, as an investor, I only invest in black people. We see 2,000 to 3,000 deals a year, depending on how you categorize them. We invest in 10, 12. 1,000 of them never should have existed and wasted my time. And a lot of that problem is because we have programs, somebody mentioned it earlier with the nonprofits and the programs, we have a lot of things that are giving, and a lot of that black money that I talked about went to fund programs where they are not coaching and teaching startups how to be excellent. But they are putting stamps on startups with names, and the companies and the founders then come to my office and say, well, such and such, I was in their program. You think you better than them? Like, shit, if they invested in you, I am, right? And so because we are pushing too many people to the top of the mountain that don't need to be pushed, and we need to pull back some of that energy, to Ryan's point, and we need to focus on pushing the people that are going to keep the flywheel going. And a lot of times it's our pride as a community. We don't want to hear this message. We as individuals, the shit hurts. I understand it. But we have to get to the point where we can start something. My company didn't make a lot of money when I was a founder. I think it was successful, but to the extent of what success means in venture capital, I had to take that, move on, and I did, and I started something else. A lot of times as founders, we blame it on the venture capitalists, we blame it on SVB, we blame it on the institutions. We have to get to a point, we say, you know what, we tried, we talked to a bunch of customers, the shit don't work, what's next? And not blame it on anyone else in the ecosystem, and go for round 2, go for round 3. And so it's hard to say because you don't know who's excellent and who's not. Like, that's an internal conversation that the 90% of the people in this room that raise their hand as founders, that's conversation that you have to have with yourself every single day. And I want to caveat this point with, I am talking about coming to me for venture capital. Your business can be fantastic and be a terrible fit for venture capital. So you have to do the research and understand what I'm looking for as a venture capitalist, because if you don't, you're going to walk into a meeting with me or walk into my office and I'm going to tell you the truth and you're going to be pissed because it's not excellence in VC. I'm going to stop there, but...
Well, hold on. Hold on a second. I think one way that we can get through this process, right, is that we have to stop sitting here in silence, not talking about the real issues that are going on in our businesses. Right, like we just have to put it plainly on the table. I was with some of our white brothers and sisters a week or so ago, and I was amazed by the level of detail that they had about other companies, like in their community. It was fascinating to me. They'd be like, yeah, I mean, it was a real estate conversation, and they were like, yeah, I mean, that building over there, their loan, they got it in 2020, and it gave me the full detail, and it wasn't scandalous. They weren't talking crazy, but it was just, this is just the state of the business. This is what you should know about this company. Right now, if you think about the challenges that you're facing and the amount of people that know about those challenges, not your mama, not your spouse, but like the amount of people in the ecosystem that can help, it's probably a very, very short list, and it doesn't need to be. Look, I'm a founder, which means that like I know about it. I've been there on Monday wondering how I'm going to make payroll on Friday. Amen? Like, we've got to say stuff like that, right? Even in the most glamorous of scenarios, it's been ugly. The last time we hosted this here, it was ugly for us as a company. For years, right? So we've got to say that and talk about how we were able to overcome it and what happened next and who we introduced, all of that stuff. Because when we don't, then we walk into Barry's office and are like, everything's good. And he's like, that's when diligence starts. And he's like, no, it isn't. We can have that conversation right now, and there's somebody in this room that could probably help you get over that hurdle. Do not be shy about saying what it is. Just tell us. And look, the very end of this, if you're a person that takes that information and does anything besides try to be helpful, shame on you. And that is absolutely not Atlanta. Like, I'm just, like, it's just not, that is not Atlanta. Oh, that's a song. I'm not trying to take the song. That's just not what we do down here, right? We need to be able to have real conversations with one another to move forward, not to go on some social media platform that nobody in our community owns and give cool little information about a company that like really is trying to do what we're trying to do. Just make it. So avoid talking to him.
Appreciate that.
So,
But by talking to us.
okay.
I mean, you know.
So here's the thing. It's already 9:15. We can't be here all night. Some folks gotta go to work. I gotta go to the doctor in the morning. So Grant, let's do this. Two things. Just answer at the same time. How can people support what you got going on? Because you got something special going on here. And we're gonna go to Anastasia after that. How can people support, and how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, indeed. All right, so I'm going to steal some of Joey's language. So if you want to take some of your dope talents and support some dope entrepreneurs at the AUC, go to cbecenter.org, and you could sign up as a mentor. If you have other things that you would like to offer, talent or treasure, specifically treasure, you could also go to cbecenter.org, sign up as a partner. So we have some wonderful corporate partners. But again, if you work for a corporation that's not one of our partners, we'd love to talk to you. If you're independently wealthy, love to talk to you because there are ways that you could support.
Thanks so much.
The other thing, kind of two other things. So one of the things that came up on the stage today, so we have the Lift Incubator starting, again, real strong focus on customer discovery so that you build strong business. Second, strong focus on cohort, right? So I think the most meaningful thing that you take away from any incubator is the community that you were in, right? So that look to your left, look to your right, that's not kind of theoretical, that's actual. And if you walk out of an incubator without that, you didn't learn anything. But we're going to be announcing that in February. Love the help for everyone to get the word out. So again, if you go to cbecenter.org, that will come there. Please share with tech founders that you know. The last thing, I mentioned the dearth of capital here. So the SBA has a road tour. So they haven't done it in years because of the pandemic. They're doing it again. We're bringing it to Atlanta so people can meet face-to-face with program managers, learn more about the SBIR program. That will be in May. Again, would love to see a full room come out and learn more about the SBIR, just like venture capital, not for everybody. We're going to host a series of webinars so that you can understand who it applies to so that we can get the right audience in the room. Again, they do these things, and as you would imagine, it's called America's Seed Fund, but if you walk into a room of people who have been funded, it doesn't look like America. And that's part of what we want to change, right? So come out, let us help you. So again, cbecenter.org, great way to connect. I'm on LinkedIn, Grant Mahosey Warner. My preferred name is Mahosey, even though I don't use it often in Atlanta. But I'll be the only one that you find on LinkedIn with that name, M-U-H-O-O-Z-I.
There it is, Anastasia.
Okay, so it's not about how you can support me, it's how I can support you. Techstars Atlanta, powered by Cox, applications will be opening next week. If you are a founder building something that is venture backable, I don't want to gloss over the fact that Barry was trying to let y'all know some of y'all are not building venture backable businesses. They will be great businesses, but they're not necessarily what we're looking for. So you must fit into that venture asset class. Applications are going to be open. You want to know when they're open, how to apply, all that good stuff. Follow me on LinkedIn, hit me up. I'm going to send all of that. I'm also going to be dropping my link for office hours tomorrow. It is a limited time thing where you get 15 minutes with me. We can jam on whatever it is you want to jam on, as long as it's business related. Maybe some personal stuff, it depends, I don't know. I can give you some life advice. My life is a mess, but I can help you. So just keep an eye out for that. But yeah, LinkedIn, Anastasia, you'll see me. Same picture that's behind you is the picture you're going to see.
There it is. Jaisa, I want to go to you.
Yeah, I don't have anything, honestly, off the top of my head. For me, the year doesn't really start until after MLK Day, so I'm just, I'm here, but I'm catching up. So I would say, if there's something that I can do to support you, please let me know. The best way to reach out would be LinkedIn. I'm not going to reply right away. It might take me 2 weeks. Whenever I get time, I just try and get through as much as I can in my inbox there. But let me know what I can do to support you. If it's something I can support, I will, of course. Some things that I have coming up, I'll be working on an event for women founders. I did a brunch 2 years ago, didn't get to do it last year, but I want to come back strong this year. So if you're a woman founder, it's very limited seating, but if you're like a woman founder and you're in the process of raising and you're building a venture backable company, let me know, because I want to give a seat or two to people who are building and looking to be in the room with a community, particularly for women founders. And outside of that, I'm back and forth in DC and Atlanta, like I said. So if I'm doing something in DC or there's someone in DC that you think I should be connected with, I'm looking for more opportunities to plug into that world. For anybody who also shares just being involved in both of those cities, I would like to tap in with you.
Barry, how can people support Black VC and how can people get in contact with you?
You can support Black VC by joining it. Like I said, we're looking for angel investors. We're looking for people that want to break in and sit in the seats that we're sitting in now. You can go to blckvc.org. And you can sign up for the programs there. You can learn more about what they're doing. For Collab Capital, it's collab.capital. We are one of the few funds that takes applications online. But I'm going to reiterate one more time. If you come to my website, please come correct. I was sitting here thinking, I have a founder in this room right now. I'm not going to call him out. But he's doing like $2.5–3 million in revenue on a close to triple-digit growth, right at triple-digit growth, and he's doing it profitably, and we can't help him fundraise. So if you ain't on that type of time, like, gotcha. You got to come correct. You got to have excellence. You got to be able to show me that you can get to that point. But if you can, it's Barry Givens Jr. on all socials. And if you talk to about half this room, they'll probably tell you I'm not going to answer. But that's changing this year. I'm hiring an assistant this year, so we working on it. So yeah, you can hit me on any of those social channels, collab.capital, to learn more about what we're doing at Collab, blackvc.org, and some things you can also do this year to support some local folks. I know Justin couldn't be here from Render today, but Render is taking off for the city of Atlanta, doing amazing work. He had another event to be at. He didn't ask me to do this. This is my point about collaboration and supporting and helping. He couldn't be here. But everyone in this room, if you are in tech, you should be at this event. You should be at Refactor. You should be at all of the events that are being put on by the people in this city, in this town. I know I missed a couple, but make sure you guys buy a ticket, support. It's a good-ass time. I'm going to be there hanging out. It was one more thing I was going to say, and I forgot this shit.
We'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it.
Right. How can people support?
Right at 30 days ago, TK and I reacquired this business, and thanks. Thank you. And I mean, in the interest of transparency, it's a critical time, right? We're back fully engaged. We've got a lot of things that we're building, but humbly, if you've ever been interested in joining TGS, we'd love to have you. This is what we do every single day, is we create connections and relationships. So if it's of interest to you, leave your name at the front desk. I think Reggie's in the back. He's very tall, you can see him. Reggie's in the back on our team, but we'd love to talk to you about what we're building here.